Ötzi, also called the Iceman, the Similaun Man, the man from Hauslabjoch, the Tyrolean Iceman, Homo tyrolensis, and the Hauslabjoch mummy, is a nickname given to the well-preserved natural mummy of a man who lived around 3300 BCE. More precisely between 3359 and 3105 BCE, with a 66% chance that he died between 3239 and 3105 BCE. The mummy was found in September 1991 in the Ötztal Alps, hence the nickname Ötzi, near the Similaun Mountain and Hauslabjoch on the border between Austria and Italy. He is Europe's oldest known natural human mummy, and has offered an unprecedented view of Chalcolithic Europeans. His body and belongings are displayed in the South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology in Bolzano, South Tyrol, Italy. Discovery. Ötzi was found on 19 September 1991 by two German tourists, at an elevation of 3,210 meters on the east ridge of the Finial Spitze in the Ötztal Alps on the Austrian-Italian border. The tourists, Helmut and Erika Simon, were walking off the path between the mountain passes Hauslabjoch and Donja. They believed that the body was of a recently deceased mountaineer. The next day, a mountain gendarme and the keeper of the nearby Similaun hut first attempted to remove the body, which was frozen in ice below the torso, using a pneumatic drill and ice axes, but had to give up due to bad weather. The next day, 8 groups visited the site, amongst whom happened to be the famous mountaineers Hans Kammerlander and Reinhold Messner. The body was semi-officially extracted on the 22nd of September and officially salvaged the following day. It was transported to the office of the medical examiner in Innsbruck, together with other objects found. On the 24th of September the find was examined there by archaeologist Konrad Spindler of the University of Innsbruck. He dated the find to be about 4,000 years old, based on the typology of an axe among the retrieved objects. At the Treaty of Saint-Germain-en-Laye, the border between North and South Tyrol was defined as the watershed of the rivers Inn and Etsch. However, near to Donja, the glacier complicated establishing the watershed at the time, and the border was established too far north. Therefore, although Ötzi's find site drains to the Austrian side, surveys in October 1991 showed that the body had been located 92.56 meters inside Italian territory as delineated in 1919. The province of South Tyrol therefore claimed property rights, but agreed to let Innsbruck University finish its scientific examinations. Since 1998, it has been on display at the South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology in Bolzano, the capital of South Tyrol. Scientific analyses. The corpse has been extensively examined, measured, X-rayed, and dated. Tissues and intestinal contents have been examined microscopically, as have the items found with the body. In August 2004, frozen bodies of 3 Austro-Hungarian soldiers killed during the Battle of San Matteo were found on the mountain Punta San Matteo in Trentino. One body was sent to a museum in the hope that research on how the environment affected its preservation would help unravel Ötzi's past. Body. By current estimates, at the time of his death Ötzi was approximately 1.65 meters tall, weighed about 50 kilograms and was about 45 years of age. When his body was found, it weighed 13.750 kilograms. Because the body was covered in ice shortly after his death, it had only partially deteriorated. Analysis of pollen. Dust grains in the isotopic composition of his tooth enamel indicates that he spent his childhood near the present village of Feldthurns, north of Bolzano, but later went to live in valleys about 50 kilometers farther north. Analysis by Franco Rollo's group at the University of Camerino has shown that Ötzi's mitochondrial DNA belongs to the K1 subcluster of the mitochondrial haplogroup K, but that it cannot be categorized into any of the 3 modern branches of that subcluster. Rollo's group published Ötzi's complete mtDNA sequence in 2008. Analysis of Ötzi's intestinal contents showed 2 meals, one of chamois meat, the other of red deer and herb bread. Both were eaten with grain as well as roots and fruits. The grain from both meals was a highly processed einkorn wheat bran, quite possibly eaten in the form of bread, in the proximity of the body, and thus possibly originating from the Iceman's provisions. Chaff and grains of einkorn and barley, and seeds of flax and poppy were discovered, as well as kernels of sloes and various seeds of berries growing in the wild. Hair analysis was used to examine his diet from several months before. Pollen in the first meal showed that it had been consumed in a mid-altitude conifer forest, and other pollens indicated the presence of wheat and legumes, which may have been domesticated crops. Pollen grains of hop hornbeam were also discovered. The pollen was very well preserved, with the cells inside remaining intact, indicating that it had been fresh at the time of Ötzi's death, which places the event in the spring. Einkorn wheat is harvested in the late summer, and sloes in the autumn. These must have been stored from the previous year. In 2009, a CAT scan revealed that the stomach had shifted upward to where his lower lung area would normally be. Analysis of the contents revealed the partly digested remains of ibex meat, confirmed by DNA analysis, suggesting he had a meal less than 2 hours before his death. Wheat grains were also found. High levels of both copper particles and arsenic were found in Ötzi's hair. This, along with Ötzi's copper axe blade, which is 99.7% pure copper, has led scientists to speculate that Ötzi was involved in copper smelting. By examining the proportions of Ötzi's tibia, femur and pelvis, Christopher Ruff has determined that Ötzi's lifestyle included long walks over hilly terrain. This degree of mobility is not characteristic of other Copper Age Europeans. Ruff proposes that this may indicate that Ötzi was a high-altitude shepherd. Using modern 3D technology, a facial reconstruction has been created for the South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology in Bolzano, Italy. It shows Ötzi looking old for his 45 years, with deep-set brown eyes, a beard, a furrowed face, and sunken cheeks. He is depicted looking tired and ungroomed. Health. Ötzi apparently had whipworm, an intestinal parasite. During CT scans, it was observed that 3 or 4 of his right ribs had been cracked when he had been lying face down after death, or where the ice had crushed his body. One of his fingernails shows 3 Bose lines, indicating he was sick 3 times in the 6 months before he died. The last incident, 2 months before he died, lasted about 2 weeks. Also, it was found that his epidermis, the outer skin layer, was missing, a natural process from his mummification in ice. Ötzi's teeth showed considerable internal deterioration from cavities. These oral pathologies may have been brought about by his grain-heavy, high-carbohydrate diet. DNA analysis in February 2012 revealed that Ötzi was lactose intolerant, supporting the theory that lactose intolerance was still common at that time, despite the increasing spread of agriculture and dairying. Skeletal details and tattooing. Ötzi had a total of 61 tattoos, consisting of 19 groups of black lines ranging from 1 to 3 mm in thickness and 7 to 40 mm long. These include groups of parallel lines running along the longitudinal axis of his body and to both sides of the lumbar spine, as well as a cruciform mark behind the right knee and on the right ankle, and parallel lines around the left wrist. The greatest concentration of markings is found on his legs, which together exhibit 12 groups of lines. A microscopic examination of samples collected from these tattoos revealed that they were created from pigment manufactured out of fireplace ash or soot. Radiological examination of Ötzi's bones showed age-conditioned or strain-induced degeneration, corresponding to many tattooed areas, including osteochondrosis and slight spondylosis in the lumbar spine, and wear and tear degeneration in the knee and especially in the ankle joints. It has been speculated that these tattoos may have been related to pain relief treatments similar to acupressure or acupuncture. If so, this is at least 2,000 years before their previously known earliest use in China. Recent research into archaeological evidence for ancient tattooing has confirmed that Ötzi is the oldest tattooed human mummy yet discovered. Clothes and shoes. Ötzi's clothes were sophisticated. He wore a cloak made of woven grass and a coat, a belt, a pair of leggings, a loincloth and shoes, all made of leather of different skins. He also wore a bearskin cap with a leather chin strap. The shoes were waterproof and wide, seemingly designed for walking across the snow. They were constructed using bearskin for the soles, deer hide for the top panels, and a netting made of tree bark. Soft grass went around the foot and in the shoe and functioned like modern socks. The coat, belt, leggings and loincloth were constructed of vertical strips of leather sewn together with sinew. His belt had a pouch sewn to it that contained a cache of useful items: a scraper, drill, flint flake, bone awl and a dried fungus. The shoes have since been reproduced by a Czech academic, who said that because the shoes are actually quite complex, I'm convinced that even 5,300 years ago, people had the equivalent of a cobbler who made shoes for other people. The reproductions were found to constitute such excellent footwear that it was reported that a Czech company offered to purchase the rights to sell them. However, a more recent hypothesis by British archaeologist Jackie Wood says that Ötzi's shoes were actually the upper part of snowshoes. According to this theory, the item currently interpreted as part of a backpack is actually the wood frame and netting of one snowshoe and animal hide to cover the face. Tools and equipment. Other items found with the Iceman were a copper axe with a U-handle, a flint-bladed knife with an ash handle and a quiver of 14 arrows with viburnum and dogwood shafts. 2 of the arrows, which were broken, were tipped with flint and had fletching, while the other 12 were unfinished and untipped. The arrows were found in a quiver with what is presumed to be a bowstring, an unidentified tool, and an antler tool, which might have been used for sharpening arrow points. There was also an unfinished yew longbow that was 1.82 meters long. In addition, among Ötzi's possessions were berries, 2 birch bark baskets, and 2 species of polypore mushrooms with leather strings through them. One of these, the birch fungus, is known to have antibacterial properties, and was probably used for medicinal purposes. The other was a type of tinder fungus, included with part of what appeared to be a complex fire-lighting kit. The kit featured pieces of over a dozen different plants, in addition to flint and pyrite for creating sparks. Ötzi's copper axe was of particular interest. The axe's haft is 60 centimeters long and made from carefully worked yew with a right-angled crook at the shoulder, leading to the blade. The 9.5 centimeters long axe head is made of almost pure copper, produced by a combination of casting, cold forging, polishing, and sharpening. It was let into the forked end of the crook and fixed there using birch tar and tight leather lashing. The blade part of the head extends out of the lashing and shows clear signs of having been used to chop and cut. At the time, such an axe would have been a valuable possession, important both as a tool and as a status symbol for the bearer. Genetic analysis. A group of scientists have sequenced Ötzi's full genome and the report was published on 28 February 2012. The y-DNA of Ötzi belongs to a subclade of G defined by the SNPs M201, P287, P15, L223 and L91. He was not typed for any of the subclades downstreaming from GL91. GL91 is now mostly found in South Corsica. Analysis of his mitochondrial DNA has shown that Ötzi belongs to the K1 subclade, but cannot be categorized into any of the 3 modern branches of that subclade. The new subclade has provisionally been named K10 for Ötzi. Multiplex assay study was able to confirm that the Iceman's mtDNA belongs to a previously unknown European mtDNA clade with a very limited distribution amongst modern datasets. By autosomal DNA he is most closely related to southern Europeans, especially to the geographically isolated populations of the two Mediterranean islands of Sardinia and Corsica. DNA analysis also showed him at high risk of atherosclerosis, lactose intolerance, and the presence of the DNA sequence of Borrelia burgdorferi, possibly making him the earliest known human with Lyme disease. A later analysis suggested the sequence may have been a different Borrelia species. A 2012 paper by paleoanthropologist John Hawkes suggests that Ötzi had a higher degree of Neanderthal ancestry than modern Europeans. In October 2013, it was reported that 19 modern Tyrolean men were related to Ötzi. Scientists from the Institute of Legal Medicine at Innsbruck Medical University had analyzed the DNA of over 3,700 Tyrolean male blood donors and found 19 who shared a particular genetic mutation with the 5,300-year-old man, which led them to identify the link. In May 2012, scientists announced the discovery that Ötzi still had intact blood cells. These are the oldest complete human blood cells ever identified. In most bodies this old, the blood cells are either shrunken or mere remnants. But Ötzi's have the same dimensions as living red blood cells and resembled a modern-day sample. Cause of death. Initial speculation. It was initially believed that Ötzi died from exposure during a winter storm. Later it was speculated that Ötzi may have been a victim of a ritual sacrifice, perhaps for being a chieftain. This explanation was inspired by theories previously advanced for the first millennium BCE bodies recovered from peat bogs such as the Tyrolean Man and the Lindo Man. Theories involving struggle followed by cold death. Initial data in 2001 X-rays and a CT scan revealed that Ötzi had an arrowhead lodged in his left shoulder when he died, and a matching small tear on his coat. The discovery of the arrowhead prompted researchers to theorize Ötzi died of blood loss from the wound, which would probably have been fatal even if modern medical techniques had been available. Further research found that the arrow's shaft had been removed before death, and close examination of the body found bruises and cuts to the hands, wrists and chest and cerebral trauma indicative of a blow to the head. One of the cuts was to the base of his thumb that reached down to the bone but had no time to heal before his death. Currently, it is believed that the cause of death was a blow to the head. However, researchers are unsure of what inflicted the fatal injury. Battle theory. Unpublished and thus unconfirmed DNA analyses claim they revealed traces of blood from 4 other people on his gear, 1 from his knife, 2 from the same arrowhead, and a 4th from his coat. Interpretations of these findings were that Ötzi killed 2 people with the same arrow, and was able to retrieve it on both occasions, and the blood on his coat was from a wounded comrade he may have carried over his back. Ötzi's posture in death could support a theory that before death occurred and rigor mortis set in, the Iceman was turned onto his stomach in the effort to remove the arrow shaft. Burial theory. In 2010, it was proposed that Ötzi died at a much lower altitude and was buried higher in the mountains, as posited by archaeologist Alessandro Vanzetti of the Sapienza University of Rome and his colleagues. According to their study of the items found near Ötzi and their locations, it is possible that the Iceman may have been placed above what has been interpreted as a stone burial mound but was subsequently moved with each thaw cycle that created a flowing watery mix driven by gravity before being refrozen. While archaeobotanist Klaus Oeggl of the University of Innsbruck agrees that the natural process described probably caused the body to move from the ridge that includes the stone formation, he pointed out that the paper provided no compelling evidence to demonstrate that the scattered stones constituted a burial platform. Moreover, biological anthropologist Albert Zink argues that the Iceman's bones display no dislocations that would have resulted from a downhill slide and that The intact blood clots in his arrow wound would show damage were the body carted up the mountain. In either case, the burial theory does not contradict the possibility of a violent cause of death as stated in the preceding theories.